What is up, everybody? We are back for another Dead by Daylight developer update, and boy, do we have a big one today. I'm not going to waste too much time getting into it. Let's just get started. We have the March 2023 developer update. This comes just a week after the Tools of Torment tweaks were announced, and it won't really discuss them, so let's get into it. Tools of Torment mid-chapter update is quickly approaching, so that can only mean one thing. It's time for another developer update. In this series of posts, we cover some of the biggest changes and additions making their way to the game. In this edition, we'll dive into various quality of life and accessibility improvements, as well as an extensive list of balance adjustments. Without further ado, let's kick things off with a highly requested feature, Bloodweb Improvements. Oh, thank God. Who would have thought that too many blood points could ever be a problem? After our progression overhaul last year, many of you found yourself with a hefty amount of blood points. So many, in fact, that finding the time to spend them before your next match could be difficult. We've seen many suggestions for ways to improve the spending process, and rather than picking just one, we've implemented a few fan-favorite ideas. We hope these new features will allow you to spend more time playing and less time shopping. Bloodweb Chain. The first new addition is very simple. Select any node and the game will automatically buy anything needed along the way. This allows you to purchase multiple nodes with a single button press and ensures that you can get exactly what you want, but as always, the entity is ever present and may consume one of these nodes before the chain can be completed, so plan wisely. So this is good. If there's something at the end of the chain that you really want, you can just click on it, and it'll take the quickest path there, and as long as the entity doesn't interrupt, you'll get that item, and it'll just do everything on the way. So that's a good add. Automatic purchase. Now, this is the one that's going to be the most used in my opinion. If you're just looking to level up your character quickly and cheaply and don't care what you get, the new center node in the Bloodweb is perfect for you. Selecting this node will automatically purchase items until the current Bloodweb has been completed. This will prioritize perks, then the cheapest option available. This can also be used on partially completed Bloodwebs, allowing you to grab anything you've got your eye on first. To ensure that players familiarize themselves with the content in the Bloodweb, this button is only appearing once the character has been prestiged for the first time. So you'll have to get to P1 before you can use it. And then you just press the center button and it goes and gets everything for you. So that's good. And press to buy. Ever wanted to watch the blood points fly from your pocket at an alarming rate? The new default interaction only requires you to press a node to purchase it instead of having to hold it. This can be used in conjunction with the other options mentioned above to further speed up the process. The interaction can be toggled if you would rather use hold instead. So that's fine. I do think the center button for auto purchase is going to be the massively used feature out of that. But good ads. Up next, we have Visual Terror Radius. Terror Radius is an integral part of the game, both warning survivors about the approaching killer and activating multiple perks. This can make things difficult for our deaf or hard of hearing players, since there is no visual representation of the terror radius's strength, forcing them to use perks which work in the terror radius as an alternative. This, of course, is not ideal. We'd like everyone to be able to use the perks they'd like and not be forced to use one to have access to a core part of the game. When enabled in the accessibility options, a heart will appear in your survivor's chest whenever the killer's terror radius can be heard. Lullabies will also appear as a haze in their chest. This heart will become more vibrant and beat more intensely the closer the killer comes. If your character is ever off screen, an indicator will appear if the terror radius is heard, signaling that you should look at your character to see the current state of terror radius visual feedback. For those who need it, this heart will also be affected by color blindness settings to ensure that it is adequately visible. This option will not provide a competitive advantage compared to the usual audio terror radius and will respect any terror radius perks, add-ons, and powers. So all that's good. That's accessibility for people hard of hearing, slightly, partially, and or fully deaf that want to participate in the game without having to use perks to know where the killer may or may not be. And it says it in itself. It won't work in the event of stealth killers and stuff like that. Totally fair. Love it. Great addition. I'll probably just check it. I probably won't use it long term, but I probably will enable it for a match or two just to see how it looks and to really get a good appreciation for it. Up next, we have Autohaven Wreckers map updates. This update will feature balance updates to two Autohaven Wreckers maps, namely the Blood Lodge and Gas Heaven. Blood Lodge can be a bit of a mixed bag depending on how the map generates. There can be plenty of safe pallets near the center or very few, creating either a very safe area or a dead zone. This area also has very few line of sight blockers, which can make it difficult for stealthy killers to sneak up on survivors. Around the edge of the map, on the other hand, features several maze tiles, high walls with a pallet and or a window. Clever survivors can combine these tiles to create strong loops, making them very difficult to catch. To remedy this, we are making significant layout changes to the map. The Blood Lodge itself will now appear closer to the center of the map, breaking up line of sight and separating some of those safer loops. The maze tiles have also been separated from one another, making it more difficult to combine them together. Okay, those are fair changes. I can respect those. Gas Heaven. Gas Heaven features unique car piles which stretch several tiles long. These special tiles can get in the way of gameplay, however, making it difficult to traverse the map. Chasing a survivor around these walls of cars can also waste a lot of time if they start the chase with a significant lead. Going forward, these car piles will be broken up into smaller single tile chunks. These car piles will also feature potential spawn locations for pallets, helping reduce the potential for dead zones to appear. Gas Heaven gas station itself has also been moved closer to the center of the map, since this makes this building much easier to get to from anywhere on the map. We've reviewed its spawning rules to prevent strong combinations of windows from spawning and adjusted its pallet spawn locations. Okay. Throughout the realm. Some of these changes will spill over into remaining Autohaven Records maps, including new edge tiles, some of which include new gameplay, such as possible pallet spawn location. Alright, here we go. Here's where things are probably going to get dicey. Healing. There's no better way to avoid being put on a hook than healing your injuries. Even if the killer is relentless, an extra health state can buy your team more time to work on generators. Having easy access to quick and plentiful heals can cause problems, particularly for higher skilled players, or for higher skilled survivors specifically, who can evade the killer for quite some time. An emergency medkit alone can heal the damage done after a long chase in roughly 10 seconds. This doesn't even begin to factor in all sorts of perks and add-ons which can speed up healing even further and grant more heals before your medkit is depleted. For killers, this means that any chase that doesn't end with a hook, even if they managed to damage a survivor, can be completely undone in a matter of seconds. Keeping survivors injured and switching targets are often wise decisions, and with this in mind, we have a few changes in store for healing to make this more practical. First, healing will now take 24 seconds by default. Previously it was 16 seconds. It's a big increase. Okay, that's a 50% increase. This will make each hit more impactful, ensuring that the survivor needs to spend longer healing their own wounds. Second, we have rebalanced medkits across the board. All medkits will now have 24 charges by default, allowing one heal before they are depleted. The different rarities of medkits are as follows. So all the medkits have been nerfed, effectively speaking. Wow. Lastly, we have done a pass on medkit add-ons, bringing those which were overperforming in line with the rest. Add-ons which add more charges to your medkit have also been reviewed with the new healing times in mind, though it is now impossible for a medkit to fully heal a survivor more than twice in one match. Wow. No more 3 heal kits. Wow. Perk updates. Moving on to perks, we have a bundle of tweaks for this update targeting both meta and non-meta options. Gearhead. First up, Gearhead currently reveals the aura of the next survivor to hit a great skill check after a survivor loses a health state. These conditions require quite a bit of work and luck on the killer's part to get value out of it. Gearhead will receive a slight rework. When a survivor loses a health state, Gearhead activates for 30 seconds. While active, any survivor who hits a good skill check will have their aura revealed to the killer for 8 seconds. This allows Gearhead to potentially provide information multiple times for each hook. Killers who efficiently catch survivors will be able to keep Gearhead activated for a good portion of the match. Anytime they lose a health state. That sounds overpowered. I wonder if that's misworded, because it says provide information multiple times for each hook. So I feel like there might be miswording, because if it's every time a survivor loses a health state, that's going to be super overpowered. Especially on faster killers like Legions and Blights, who can get around and hit somebody really quickly. Nurses, that's going to be really powerful. Overzealous. Overzealous grants a repair speed bonus when cleansing a totem and a larger bonus when cleansing a hex totem. Little did we know the skirmishes this would cause between the boon lowers out there. Moving forward, Overzealous will activate when blessing a totem in addition to cleansing. We've also slightly increased the bonus to 8, 9, and 10% instead of 6, 7, and 8. So a slight buff to that, and including blessing instead of just cleansing. Scourge Hook Pain Res, okay? This is a popular perk. This perk has gradually found its way back into the meta. To address this, we've given Scourge Hook Pain Res a slight rework. The perk starts with 4 tokens. The first time each survivor is hooked on a Scourge Hook, the generator with the most progress will explode and lose progress. We've also reduced the difference between different tiers of the perk, now 11, 13, 15%. So, wait. So now Scourge Hook only works the first time you hook each survivor? No, that's a mega nerf. That's destructive to that perk. Alright, Dead Hard. Though Dead Hard initially fell from grace after the 6.1.0 update, it has steadily climbed back to being one of the most prominent survivor perks. Dead Hard already requires some precision to use, and further reducing the invulnerability window would make it far too unreliable and frustrating. Therefore, Dead Hard has also received a slight rework. Dead Hard will activate after safely unhooking a survivor. When activated, press the active ability button while injured and running to gain the endurance status effect for 0.5 seconds, then becoming exhausted. Dead Hard will deactivate when it successfully protects the user from damage. This will put a damper on how often Dead Hard can be used, keeping it as a powerful reward for survivors who have earned it. So they're basically adding a safe unhook requirement in order to be able to use Dead Hard. Wow. I mean, that's a change to Dead Hard. That's a big change to Dead Hard. It also means that going forward, first chase of the game, you do not have to worry about Dead Hard. It also means that if you get a killer that's slugging, they don't have to worry about Dead Hard, because you won't have Dead Hard. Call of Brine. Call of Brine quickly rose in popularity following the meta shakeup last year, granting a large increase to the regression rate of generators. It is not uncommon for a generator to fully regress once the survivor is chased away. To tone out its power, we have reduced the additional regression speed to 115, 120, and 125% instead of 150, 175, and 200%. So now the best version of it is worse than the worst version of it was. Wow, that's a mega nerf. Overcharge. Similar to Call of Brine, Overcharge saw a similar rise in power over the past year. This perk also increases the regression rate of generators pretty substantially. To bring it in line with other perks, we reduced the maximum regression speed to 130% instead of 200. This would make it take longer for regression rate to become beneficial, so at the same time, we've increased the starting regression speed to 85% instead of 75% to help offset this. Additionally, the penalty for missing the special skill check has been reduced by 1% at each tier. So, Call of Brine nerfed, Overcharge nerfed, Boon Circle of Healing. A lot of survivors are going to be very upset about this. This is overkill. This perk has become the jack of all trades of healing perks. Not only does it allow you and your fellow survivors to heal without a medkit, but it also increases the speed of healing across the board. Going forward, Boon Circle of Healing will no longer allow survivors to heal without a medkit. Instead, it will provide a 40, 45, or 50% healing speed bonus to healing others. This bonus will not apply to healing done with a medkit. So, if you have a medkit, you shouldn't do it in the Boon Circle because you're not going to get the speed bonus. You're just going to waste your medkit. You should only use it if you're using it on yourself. Honestly, medkits should only be used on yourself now because it's the only way you're going to be able to heal yourself unless you bring in self-care, which the whole point of the recent thing was to reduce the use of self-care, but I feel like this is just going to cause it to go back up. Additionally, the auras of injured survivors within the boon's range will be revealed to all other survivors. So that's a good add, but I mean, this is overkill. Like, they over-nerfed it. Honestly, you could have made it decrease the speed of healing yourself further. You could have made it like self-care, where you heal yourself at 25% rate or whatever. But the fact that you can't heal yourself without the medkit now, in my opinion, kills this perk. And using a medkit in it doesn't get the speed boost, that's overkill. So, Gearhead, mega buff. Overzealous, moderate buff. Pain Res, super nerfed. Dead Hard, fairly nerfed. Call of Brine, Overcharge, and Circle of Healing, super nerfed. All three of them, super nerfed. Killer updates. Starting with this mid-chapter, we'd like to include a bunch of small tweaks to various killers in each update. These will be smaller scale than the reworks we've done in the past, focusing more on number of tweaks than new features or significant changes. Larger reworks are still planned, but we want to show some love to our growing roster along the way. The Hillbillies. Start your chainsaws and don't worry about them overheating. We've adjusted the Billy's overheat mechanic to be much more forgiving. The amount of heat generated from both starting to rev and continuing to rev your chainsaw has been drastically reduced, making the overheat mechanic almost a non-factor when used in loops and over short distances, much akin to how I used to play. Just as before, heat will begin to dissipate as soon as the chainsaw sprint ends, meaning most of the heat generated from the short sprint will already be gone by the time your chainsaw is ready for another attack. The amount of heat generated while chainsaw sprinting, on the other hand, has been increased slightly. Though the changes above will help counteract this, longer sprints will cause your chainsaw to overheat quicker, so be careful not to let it overheat in the empty corner of the map. Last but not least, we've coned down the Doom engravings and Death engravings add-ons. These add-ons will provide less movement speed before an increased heat generation further. That's fair. That's all fair. Okay. The Pig, the John's Medical File add-on increased the Pig's crouch movement speed. This add-on hasn't been performing well, so we've decided to nerf the Pig. Increase the add-on. That's funny. It's crossed out, decided to nerf the Pig, because people keep complaining about her. Increase this add-on's movement speed bonus to 10% instead of 6%. That's fine. The Oni. Two of the Oni's add-ons, Blackened Toenail and Bloody Sash, allow him to move faster while absorbing blood orbs, losing less ground in the process. These add-ons weren't performing as well as we'd like, so we've given them a slight improvement. They will now increase movement speed while absorbing by 0.4 and 0.7 meters respectively instead of 0.3, 0.6. The Nightmare Sheep Block and Unicorn Block add-ons inflict blindness on survivors who trigger a Dream Snare or Dream Pallet. These add-ons weren't doing so well, so we've increased the duration of the blindness status effect on each of these add-ons by 30 seconds. Okay. The Executioner's Scarlet Egg add-on increased the duration of Killer Instinct inflicted by the Rites of Judgment by 1.5 seconds. This doesn't provide much value since Killer's Instinct only updates its position periodically. To make it more meaningful, we're increasing this bonus to 3 seconds. The Clown, Redhead's Pinky Finger. Oh, fucking hate that add-on. The Redhead's Pinky Finger add-on can be incredibly powerful, no shit. Allowing the Clown to instantly down a survivor after hitting them directly with a bottle. We've previously toned this add-on down by reducing the maximum number of bottles the Clown can hold, but it seems like this downside was not enough to bring it in line with the other ultra-rare add-ons. Going forward, this add-on will reduce the maximum held bottles by 3 instead of 2. Okay, I guess the problem is he can use his other add-on slot to increase his bottle count, I think. Bright Light Interactions removal. I thought about this too. This is upsetting. When Dead by Daylight first released, only 3 killers were in the game. It wasn't unreasonable to bring a toolbox just in case you faced off against the Trapper, or a flashlight to burn the Wraith when it was a 1 in 3 chance. But as the killer roster has grown, these mechanics have started to feel out of place. The majority of killers do not have any interactions with survivor items, leading to the ones that do feeling unfairly punished by something beyond their control. In the past, we removed the ability to sabotage the Trapper's bear traps to alleviate this issue. In this update, we'll be removing flashlight interactions with various killer powers. Since some of these actions aren't very well known, we'll quickly run through each of them. The Wraith, remove the ability to burn the Wraith out of his cloak. This would also stun him in the process. The Nurse, similar to the Wraith, the Nurse could also be burned while blinking. This didn't come up very often since it was very risky and difficult to pull off, but it is also being removed. The Artist, survivors could shine a flashlight at crows to scare them away. This didn't come into play very often since crows could easily be shooed away without using flashlight charges. And the Hag. Arguably the most impactful, flashlights have long been the sole counter to the Hag's phantasm traps. Not only could they reveal the aura of nearby traps, but shining a flashlight at the trap would destroy it. Removing the flashlight effect from the Hag's power is a little trickier since it would leave survivors with no option but to set off a trap and risk the Hag teleporting to it. To ensure that this doesn't make the Hag too oppressive, we are adding the ability to wipe away a phantasm trap. In order to do so, survivors will need to spot the trap, crouch over to it, and avoid setting it off, and perform a several second long action to clear it. While this will allow all survivors to clear traps, it will now be much more difficult and time consuming to do so. Additionally, this prevents a survivor with a flashlight from destroying the Hag's trap mid-chase. So basically, Hag traps are now destroyable just like Trapper's traps are disarmable. You got to get close to it without setting it off, and then you can manually do it. That's fine. I don't personally agree. I don't care about the Nurse one or the Artist one. I never would try and light burn the Nurse or bother with the flashlight on the Artist, but light burning the Wraith was important to stopping him from getting such an advantage on you, because he could practically get right next to you before you would even know he was there. Not a fan of that going away, but I am a fan of the Hag change. Even though I like the flashlight, the idea that you can just do it now is better in my opinion. And then finally, we have the Deep Rift and Beyond. Late last year, a deeper level of the Rift was revealed, allowing players who have already reached Tier 70 to go above and beyond and continue progressing to alternate versions of outfits. Starting with the Tool of Torment's mid-chapter update, this deep rift will feature unique visuals to better differentiate the bonus deep rift tiers from the regular ones. As for tomes, you may notice a new trend emerging where the most recent chapter's lore is expanded in the following tome. It is no coincidence. This is something we'll be doing for all new original chapters moving forward. This will allow us to expand further on the most recently introduced characters' lore in a more natural and exciting way. Licensed chapters, meanwhile, may be an exception to this. While we would love to expand upon their stories, as we have done in the past with the likes of Ghostface and Bill Overbeck, licensed characters come from their franchise of their own and with their own stories to tell. The tomes following licensed chapters may feature existing original characters instead. Older characters will still be featured throughout new tomes as minor characters. With that, we've reached the end of this month's developer update. The public test build for the Tools of Torment mid-chapter update will open next week. We look forward to reading your feedback once you've had a chance to try it. Until next time, the Dead by Daylight team. A lot of these changes are really good. A lot of these changes are really bad. This is a very balanced in the sense of woohoo, oh fuck. Honestly, for the most part, I'm on board with a lot of the things they're changing. I think that Dead Hard is really strong, especially with matchmaking being so jank. Overzealous' change is fine. Gearhead could be a little dangerous, but it would be particular. Scorch Hook Pain Res, I feel like they're kind of crapping on it. Call of Brine Overcharge are getting hefty nerfs, but there's ways around them. Circle of Healing, I feel like, is the biggest overreaction on here. That's a massive nerf that's going to really hurt a lot of Survivors playstyles. And then other than that, the only thing I'm bothered by is getting rid of the Wraith Slight Burn. But other than that, I think a lot of these updates are really good, moving in the right direction. I don't know how I feel about all the healing. Circle of Healing and medkit healing changes. But I do kind of agree with them in the sense that healing has been kind of oppressive. I feel like you hit somebody and you go to hit somebody else because they tried to body block you and all of a sudden the other person's healed again. And it can be frustrating. Me personally, I would much rather see Circle of Healing and boons in general have tokens. Like it starts with 3 tokens, kind of like Distortion, and you get more tokens by doing things, whether it's repairing generators or being in the killer's terror radius or whatever it may be, healing actions, whatever. Having a set amount of tokens, so it's a set amount of times you can boon, so that you have to be smarter about it. You can't just go re-boon something that just got snuffed because they'll just go back and snuff it and then you've wasted a second token. I almost think that would be better if they added like a token count, 3 or 5 tokens, and then a way to replenish said tokens based on an action in game. I think that would almost be better than nerfing what the perk actually does, because now I feel like Circle of Healing is going to go in the very much reserved category. And so will Exponential, as soon as, if they ever add the anti-slugging, being able to just get up on your own, you know, unbreakable base kit thing. If they ever add that, then Exponential will go out the window, and Shadow Step and Dark Theory are already barely used, especially Dark Theory. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I think that the Circle of Healing is overkill, but everything else, we'll see. That is going to do it for the March update. I will keep you guys in the loop for anything else that happens. Thank you guys for hanging out. Make sure to check us out on Twitch. And with all that being said, as always, I am Pip. Y'all are the greatest, and when in doubt, see you in the fog. Later, guys.